Today we get things started by taking a look at what the Underground Railroad was and its significance to American history. So let's head over to our interview area and get started. Come on.
All right. Hello, Mr.
Hi, Mr. Anderson.
Dr. Anderson. Nice to meet you.
And thank you. Nice to meet with you.
Now, could you tell us what is the Underground Railroad?
It's a process, it's a route, it's an effort to get free from slavery, and it requires the cooperation of a range of people, because generally the people who were trying to escape slavery were from the South, and they generally were trying to go north, even as far as Canada.
Okay. So when did the Underground Railroad start?
Well, probably in the first years that enslaved people were here and were expressing their dissatisfaction and maybe got some vision of there being a place better than where they were. So it would start as early as there were congregations of people who wanted to get free. It was in the late 18th century and certainly the 19th century that you had a high volume of it and prescribed routes and many operatives.
Now, were most of the people that took part in the Underground Railroad abolitionists? And if so, what's that term mean?
People who took part in the efforts to get enslaved people free could be called abolitionists, because abolition means getting away from being enslaved, abolishing that process. So the people who helped the ones trying to escape could easily be called abolitionists. There were others who not only aided individuals when the opportunity came up, but there were people who were much learned and walking around in various areas of influence and trying to make the case for ending the government's protection for the right to own slaves, to own other human beings. So the abolitionist has quite a range. There's the people who have hands-on in helping John or Mary to get away, and there are the people who are knocking on the doors of the legislators, be they state or federal, trying to change the laws. Because remember, even with the 1800s, where we're putting together the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, there is a protection for this business of owning people. And that 1793 law will be amended in 1850, and amended, in other words, strengthening it. That is to say, even if a person has the ability to speak for him or herself, when he or she is brought before some kind of magistrate, say in a so-called free state, that person has no right to speak on her or his behalf. It's against the law in 1750.
So they would need the abolitionists to speak for them?
The abolitionists would be the ones who would speak, because obviously the abolitionists are free people.
So what kind of people would be abolitionists? Was it only people who were educated? Was it, I mean, you said that there's a range of different people. So who would be an abolitionist? And could you be from the South? And could you be a Southerner who is an abolitionist as well?
It would be hard for a Southerner to be an abolitionist and stay in the South, because to be elected, you had to have enough votes in favor of your candidacy, and most of the people in the South presumably would want to either have slaves or be working for people who use slaves, because that was the money maker. Cotton, for example, becomes American cotton becomes a very sought after commodity. People around the world, people in England and France, want Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama cotton. And it takes a long time for them to get over that lust for the United States cotton and become people who would favor getting rid of slavery. That is, getting rid of the process by which human beings are required to be harvesters of cotton.
Okay, now some runaway slaves traveled through New York State on their way to Canada, and some even decided to settle here in Western New York, more specifically right here in Rochester. Can you share with us what they might have experienced once they settled here?
If they settled here in Rochester by early, by 1840, I guess we've got a pretty solid church called the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, and that's a gathering place for people who want the freedom enough to express themselves on Sunday or whatever, but also they have the information that a group of people, a diverse group of people might have that would help them on the next step. So the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church is a part of the Underground Railroad, but also other businesses become that way. In fact, at one period of time, we have an escapee from North Carolina who is right over there on Main Street. Her name is Harriet Jacobs, and she and her brother, who have escaped from slavery in North Carolina, are trying to run an anti-slavery reading room. So it's not so much buying and selling newspapers and books, but it's you come, maybe they are given a few pennies or whatever, and the publications that Harriet and her brother have access to make good reading for people, and even if you can't read, you can be read to. So you have all of that.
So the term Underground Railroad, where does that term come from? Is there a railroad that's going underground? Is it just a subway? I mean, I think a lot of kids are confused by the term Underground Railroad.
Yes, well, we don't know in any specific way, but it is often said that Kentucky, being just south of Ohio, divided by the Ohio River, was a place where a lot of escapees from especially Alabama and Tennessee would cross over into so-called a free state. And at this place, there appears to be, late in the slavery movement, where a slave has keeping the bloodhounds away, running faster than they can, and got to the Ohio River. And the river is a formidable place. It's going to slow you down. But the people who are chasing him say, oh, we got him now, we got him now. And as they come up to the river, they can't see him. They can't see him swimming. What happened to him? And supposedly somebody remarked, he must have gotten away on an Underground Railroad. Steam engines, the railroad was a major long-distance vehicle for travel. And so that metaphor, railroad and underground.
That's where it came from originally.
Yeah,
awesome.
And there were probably more than one commentator who used something like that.
Okay. Great.
Well, thank you for your knowledge.
Thank you for joining us today very much.
We would like to thank Dr. Anderson for being here tonight. And now we are going to change things up for a few minutes and take a look at this video on the Trans Mountain Oil Pipeline. Check it out.